Are we muted at the start?
This is the North End. This is the North End.
Welcome to the North End YouTube channel. We have a very, very special show for you today. We're going to be talking about the footballer's life, what it's like to come through a youth system and get to a professional level. And we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Nathan Hands. Nathan is with Luke. Good to see you both. Obviously, you're both together in the UK at this time. I just want to welcome you, Nathan. Thanks for kind of doing this with us, because this is a rare opportunity, I think, for people to get the chance to chat with a person who's gone through this. You know, I grew up playing at a young age and didn't get a chance to being in Canada to have the situation where I potentially could do what you've done. Welcome to the show.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share my story, actually. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So you just a quick understanding, Luke. Obviously, great to see you as well, pal. How do you guys know each other? How do you guys know each other? Is there a history there? Luke, did you just not quite make it? Is that what happened?
By not quite making it, you mean at all? Then
Yeah,
yes,
like Nathan did and you did. That's my
exactly. That's the only difference. So actually, no, Nathan and I only recently met since I've been back in Birmingham. We worked quite a ridiculous TV job together, extras on an old TV show that kind of airs on BBC. So Nathan's obviously done a number of things. We got chatting. Nathan very quickly realized that I was sad and alone, and obviously took pity on me. He tried to pretend like he wasn't sad and alone.
That sounds right.
That's about right. Yeah. So we just kind of connected. We've been obviously causing all kinds of trouble to the few attractive women in Birmingham and maybe abroad. But,
I could see the two of you. I could see the two of you guys having a good night out for sure. A couple handsome fellas with good hair. Meeting the ladies. Back in my day, I would have been there with you guys. I'm a little too old for it now, but I would have been right there with you.
You still got that party lifestyle in you, bro. I'm still seeing you with a couple of drinks in you.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got a couple of me right now. So.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. Actually, a nice English one for you there.
Cheers.
Camden.
I'm drinking fancy vodka stuff, but whatever. Yeah, I'm old now. I can't drink beer anymore.
You're a fancy bitch. So I'm gonna just pass it across to Nathan. Let him kind of talk a little about who he is.
So Nathan, as you're about to say this, I'm going to chuck it up on screen. We have this image here that sort of gives a sense of your where you started and where you ended up. So please speak to these if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I started playing football seriously, as a child when I was like 9-10 years old.
Right.
That was more like I had never played for any kind of junior side, but I was really keen to get involved. My dad recommended to a couple of local sides. So I joined a team called Moor Green, which is very local to where I'm from in Birmingham.
Right.
They're now known as Solihull Moors. Actually, they're doing quite well. But that was great. I really learned a lot there. I actually started out playing as a centre-back because I was very tall for my age. Believe it. I've not grown since.
That's ironic.
I peaked at 10. So.
I was going to say, I know that Luke's not very tall, and you guys look about the same height. So.
No, I'm a lot taller than him.
I'm about 6'1", right?
And then I constantly was dribbling out with the ball, just naturally. I didn't know anything about positional play. So I scored a lot of goals going forward. It wasn't long then until I got spotted by Wolves, as you can see there.
We'll get into this. So just top level.
Yeah. Well, we'll do a basic rundown, and then we'll let Luke. We'll let you run through the questions about each sort of.
Sure.
Okay. So where do you want me to carry on?
Yeah. Carry on. Just tell Luke to shut up.
Yeah. So
we usually do so.
Yeah.
I'm used to doing it myself, to be honest. Yeah. I was at Wolves for a while, and then I moved on. I had a short spell with Birmingham, and then I ended up going to USA myself on a short period on a scholarship, which didn't work out very well at all. And I was floating around some semi-professional clubs in England trying to find a route into the professional game, which at that time there was no under-23 football. So it was either senior football or reserve football, or you had to be under 16. So it was one or the other. So I sent a few letters out to clubs, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Wolves again, tried to get back in. Nothing really came forward. So I took myself out to Sweden in the end and that's where I got a few professional contracts. That's where the adventure started, really, for me, with some mad stuff on the way. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is Brian. This is kind of some of the stuff that obviously we want to speak to Nathan. So, let's take it back, Brian. I think let's start with the start. That's where it all started. So, obviously, the Moors at the time, well, Solihull Moors. Obviously, now it is. They formed in 2007, 2008. They joined with Moor Green, wasn't it? Correct. So now they, obviously, as a case of clubs that are financially unsecure and they needed to do that. So you started with them, you were with them for a number of years, and then you joined Wolves. Now
can I just quickly interrupt you? Sorry, Luke. Solihull. Where is that in England? Where are you? Is it close to where Wolves are? Give me a sense of that.
Yeah, of course. So Solihull is part of Birmingham. It's like an extension.
Oh,
it's the nicer part of Birmingham. They're very fancy.
I was going to say the accent is still very Brummy, so I assumed that it was around there.
That's true. Yeah, he's not from Solihull. He wishes he was, but
okay.
No. So you had Moor Green. Moor Green joined Solihull Moors and are now known as Solihull Moors in 2007. So Nathan was obviously with them start. Then you moved and got scouted and joined the Wolves Academy, which is a great academy. Here in England, and especially in the Midlands, bar Aston Villa, probably Wolverhampton would be very close, if not the same as Villa at the time.
Okay.
So you were with them for 3 years. Now, this is the first question I want to throw to you, Nathan, is that in the last couple of years, we've heard a lot about abuse cases in the, back 30, 40 years ago. A lot of stuff happened to a lot of players. A lot of professionals have come out and said they experienced a lot of abuse, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. You were with them for 3 years, and just in the conversations we'd spoken to, you hadn't had the greatest of experiences, which can really shape a youngster's future. So I'd love to speak a little bit more about that. Like, you left a great academy at 16. Why did you leave it, and what was happening?
Yeah, basically, when I first went down on the trial, I was very confident. I used to train on a Monday for 6 weeks. And I had no nerves. I was just interested to show myself what I could do. And I was doing outstandingly well, even by my own admission. I thought I'm destroying this. Towards the end of the 6 weeks, Brian's smiling about that. He thinks that's quite funny.
Brian does that, mate. He's kind of
So towards the end of that, they offered me a contract, which I took. And then that's when it really kind of got, for me, it got interesting. I did notice a divide when I first went along. So Wolverhampton, as Luke just mentioned, it's part of the West Midlands, but they don't seem to take particularly kindly to people from the Birmingham area. I don't know how it is now, but I was clearly from Birmingham.
Is that a rivalry thing, Nathan? Is that sort of what's going on there?
Yeah, I would guess so. I mean, all the other lads were like Wolverhampton based, different accent, different environment. Gotcha. And I was coming in, I was a Birmingham fan. Not that should matter, but they didn't know that. But they take it very, very seriously.
They would take that seriously.
Very cutthroat environment there. So I was outcasted basically from my early days after the 6 weeks, even during the 6 weeks. But I kind of just blanked it out during the 6 weeks. And I would go training. No one would speak to me. The coaches would encourage some of the bigger lads. I mean, I was quite tall, but there was some lad. Everyone in that academy at that age was 6 foot and over, which is crazy really for that age. And that's what they focused on there, aggressive physical players rather than technical players. And I wasn't really one of those players. So they used to get players to rough me up in training to the point where they were getting sent off in training games. And it's just within our own squad. And the coaches would just laugh about it. No one was supporting me. So I felt very
part of the culture, essentially, right? This was how they ran.
Yeah, and I wasn't ready for that. I mean, I'd played for Moor Green, which was a very a close-knit, very friendly club. No one was like that. I was the only one there really that was looking to move on into seriously taking my football seriously. Sorry, but the environment and the culture at Moor Green was nothing like this. And I was very young still. Maybe I wasn't mature enough. But I used to dread going to training to the point where I would come up with any excuse, and it got to the stage where I just pulled myself out of it. Yeah, some days I was.
Quick question for you there, Nathan. Where was your family in this situation? Are you with your parents, or are you just living at home? You're kind of just going to and from the training ground.
Yeah. They were very supportive. Yeah, like my dad, he never forced me to do anything, nothing like that. Because I know some parents that, especially these days, they're kind of like on their kids they want that fame through their child's.
Yeah, they're riding the coattails kind of scenario.
Yeah,
right?
And it wasn't like that at all. My dad was always, only go if you want to go kind of situation. He would support me. My mum, they used to come to all my games and everything like that. But it was very, I also felt like a pressure to go because of the status of being there. So I didn't want to leave.
You want to
They were
lose
Premier League
that,
club.
right? Yeah,
No, Premier League club. You know, it's going back to school. Everyone knows, oh, he plays for Wolves. Great. But inside, I used to hate it. I dreaded it. So nervous. I'd build up the nerves to the point where
Oh man,
I couldn't go. Yeah, I'd want to turn around on the way there on the journey.
That's amazing.
Pressure,
That's like
right?
awful.
And I used to go. My dad used to take me on his motorbike there, and I'd just be terrified on the way. To be honest, not just of the motorbike, of the training as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was double whammy for me. So yeah, and I think to jump a few steps forward, that kind of fear stayed with me for a while, but I think I'm a bit of a late bloomer in football. I had the skill at the young age always, and the ability and the work rate, but I didn't really want to do it.
It's the mentality thing is a bit different, right? Like you kind
I think I just matured later.
Yeah.
And I see players like for example Jamie Vardy, and he's had a similar path, not abroad, but he started out late in the professional game.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
And some players, I mean, at that age, it was almost like in that day, if you weren't first team at 18, you weren't good enough, and that's to me insane.
Yeah,
because you see even players like Mikel Antonio, it's coming through now. He's
like 32, right? He's
so
top goal scorer in the league at the moment.
Yeah, and he also had a non-league background, and these guys, it's a better grounding in many ways. I didn't learn much at Wolves on a football level. I got fitter because of the intensity.
The training, yeah.
Technically, the training was not. I'll be honest, it was poor. I used to take myself to Dutch training sessions called Kuva coaching. That was really good. That was all about.
That's more technical, right? Like you're learning a system.
Well, Nathan, I want to ask you there. So just obviously talking to that, we've seen the success of the Dutch kind of youth system. We've seen the success of Dutch football probably going back 30 years, from Johan Cruyff and then continuing. We only have to look at Ajax's incredible ability to keep churning out fantastic young players. Yeah, exactly, Brian. So, what was the key failings? We're talking you're at the youth system, probably 17, 18 years ago. Probably around that 15, 16 mark. So kind of like this is the late 2000s, mid 2000s. Like what was the key failings? And this probably speaks to, for me, the failing of the British grassroots football system.
The system,
we've not we constantly are having this conversation about being such a big country and a big state in regards to football and such purists of the game. And yet here we are, unable to win a major tournament since 1966. So, I'd love to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I got a few questions about that as well, because I do think there has been some changes made in the England setup.
Yeah.
And we are starting to see some results from some of the quality coming through at some of the younger ages. But yeah, please speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, a typical day at Wolves, for example, would involve, it'd be a 2-hour training session. 1 hour, we'd get there. It'd just be straight into 11-a-side, no coaching during that 11-a-side game. As I mentioned previously, every player was 6 foot and over. Now that, just because at that age they have a physical advantage, that is always going to catch up with them at a later age. So that is so short-sighted. It was so results-driven at the age of 13, 14. And they weren't even getting results. We're getting beaten by Liverpool 5-6. We're getting beaten. We had about 3 months where we didn't win a match. So,
yikes.
And the forwards were just big units. They were hold-up merchants, back to goal. Yeah. We couldn't score any goals. And it was so dated. And this was a Premier League academy, as I say. It was quite surprising.
Could you just frame the year? What year are we looking at here? 2001, 2002 kind of thing? Or
they were Premier League. So, yeah, I think it was around then. Maybe the year after 03, 04 as well. Okay. So it was just, 03, 04, definitely, actually.
Still very dated at the time, I would think, as far as the systems are concerned. It's considerably different now than it was then.
It's changed now, I think. The manager at the time was Dave Jones for Wolves, and they had players like Paul Ince was still there.
Oh, wow.
If you know.
So did you get to train with Paul Ince? What was that like?
No, I was too young.
Too young, yeah. Weren't in the first team yet, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it was, as I say, the training was very, I'd say, like old school. So we did that for an hour, and then we'd go in. We had like a training dome, these indoor facilities they had. That was quite new at the time. So it would just be fitness work then for the second hour home. That was it. There was no focus. There was never any technical aspects.
It wasn't like, here's our system and here's how we want to play as a club and this is our idea. Like there was no idea that
it was all about let's get the result.
Yeah.
And it was that. Yeah. And I wasn't maybe at that age in that mindset. You want to win, but I didn't understand this.
Yeah. You're looking
where the
for
improvement is
direction,
coming.
I would imagine, like to somebody
Yeah,
to give you a sense of like what is it we're trying to do. We got a question here from Paul. Paul is not able to join us on the show today, but he is in the comments. So in North America, video highlight training packages are really common for college and semi-pro submissions. Is that practice in Europe as well? Did you when you were sort of coming up, did you have a video reel of the what you were capable of? Was that something that was
no.
happening?
In them days, it was literally a case of
Back in my day.
back in everything was black and white.
Yeah,
It was more. It was like you would write a letter to the club. You could get in touch with like an academy director. They'd send a scout down to watch your games. So
right, and that would be it. Like, so you're playing in a shit system
had,
potentially at Wolves, and you're not really, at that age learning anything.
So I was training with Wolves for the first like 6 weeks.
Right,
I could still play for Moor Green. So when I was going back there, I was standing out because my fitness had it just surpassed everyone else's. And I got moved from defense. I was playing up front. I was scoring goals all the time.
So you went from center half to striker in a short time.
Yeah.
Right, very quickly. Yeah. Very famous Spurs player who did that. Can you name it?
Center half to striker. Oh man.
The biggest betrayal in Spurs' history.
Yeah, you're talking about what's his nuts? I don't even want to say his name.
Sol Campbell.
Judas. Yeah,
Solomon
Judas.
Campbell.
I didn't want to say it. It's Judas. Just that.
Yeah, I could see you didn't want to say it.
Yeah,
so when he played his first professional game, like for Spurs, their main team, he scored. So he was a striker. He scored on his, and he actually went the other way around. So
he went from striker to defender.
And then they were like, right, number one, fantastic. And then the next training session after scoring on his debut as a striker, they went, yeah, we're going to move you to centre back. Must have been a weird one.
It must have been.
It's probably why he left.
Yeah, probably.
Also, he's a prick. But anyway, go on. On, Nathan. Sorry.
Did you blame him for wanting to leave Tottenham?
Oh well. Maybe not. Anyway, let's roll on with Nathan here.
Yeah, let's roll on.
So yeah, just to finish what I was saying, I became a lot more physical just compared to my other teammates when I was going back to Moor Green. I didn't even realise that was just a trait I suppose I picked up at Wolves just naturally.
Yeah, probably because you had to with the bigger players around you. Yeah. You had to respond to that in some capacity.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And but the Dutch training on the other hand compared to Wolves was I used to go extra. It's like a Friday evening. And it was just chalk and cheese, different environment. Everything was ball related, fitness with the football in small spaces. Technical skills. You had to dribble players before you could move the ball on. We'd learn turns, Cruyff turns, step overs. It was all about being confident on the ball. And sometimes I was so used to just shifting it and striking the ball. It was like they tell me off. Like, no, you've got to go round the player. You've got to get used to being able to do that. So that was great. I loved that. That was my passion. And the Wolves, I used to tolerate the Wolves and love the Dutch coaching.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot more fun, right? Like as a player to learn those techniques and the skills.
Well, that's what football's all about.
Yeah,
football is about the ball, not about the physical. Yeah, you need a physical aspect, but for me, you're there to kick the ball and play and pass and move, not run around headless chicken style. So. Yeah.
It's a level. It's a difference of an approach, and arguably something that, if you're a technical player, that's what you're looking for sure. Luca, you want to carry on with the question?
No, yeah, exactly. So there, obviously, that's a great take on the start. So from there, you moved around a little bit. Then you ended up at Solihull Moors. That's where you kind of your first inkling with the professional. Was that right?
Yeah. But they were playing in the Conference South, I believe, at the time.
So in the Conference South. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you played in quite a dramatic 3-3 draw with Burton, managed by the then great Nigel Clough.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, he came on as a substitute actually in the game as well.
He was a player coach, was he?
Yeah, I don't know how old he was then. He was in his 30s. He was late.
That's back in the day when that happened.
Right? Beautiful.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
And the goalkeeper was an ex-Birmingham and Leicester player as well, Kevin Paul.
Yeah.
He was in goal, and he got done with a couple of bad goals actually, which was pleasing.
Yeah.
So that was I was a bit overawed to see him up close actually, Clough.
So Nathan, what age are you at here when you're
17? So
this is 16 Wolves, 17. You've moved on to Solymore. Is that am I
Solihull Moors again? Yeah. So
Solihull
they merged
Moors.
with Moor Green. Financial reasons they merged as a side.
Gotcha.
I was making my debut. I was played out of position against the guy I was up against. His name will come to me soon, but he'd played the season before for Stoke and he played 40 games. So I was
Good Lord.
playing left back where I'd never played
Oh,
at a
goodness.
young age in a senior game. I was like, okay, the manager didn't do me any favors, but I did really well. I coped. I was very nervous. I kind
Probably
of had that
the nerves
nervous
probably
energy. I remember
help in
feeling
that
very
situation,
tired.
right? Like you get so nervous that you're just going to be extra careful about the decisions you make and try to, especially
Exactly.
defending, right? You're not going to get yourself too far forward and make
I
errors.
did a goal line, slid in on the goal line to clear one after someone went around the goalkeeper, which was great. I still got told off by the defenders for keeping the player on side, but we'll ignore that. And then
never happy, right? They're never happy.
That's what I would do, actually. As a centre back or someone in the defence, I'd have been screaming at you for that.
And I pulled off a nutmeg on that winger as well in the corner, which I was happy with. So it was a good. There was a lot of fans there. I'd done it for that. And it's a very small ground, so it's very close to the pitch. So I think there must have been close to 8,000 perhaps around the ground, because it was a new side as well. So it's a new team. It was quite exciting for the locals kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And Burton were a full-time side. They destroyed the league that season.
They did.
So it was a great experience. I held my own, but that was a different style.
Was that the last time you played left back? Was it, did you play left back?
I've done it a lot since,
have you?
and I know I'm a bit more accomplished there now. Yeah, but that was I just had to guess what to do. I had no idea what I was doing. To be honest, just going on.
That's the position I started in as a player when I was very young. Was left back, and then I ended up moving left midfield. But it's not an easy position with a fast winger. It's very, very difficult positioning and decision making, and not getting yourself too far forward. And it's a challenge.
That was the thing. Yeah, it's just when to press the winger, when to back off. I just didn't. And I think if I'd let myself flow naturally, I'd probably known what to do. But because I was so nervous, I was overthinking every decision.
Makes sense. So okay, I want to take it from there. So that's at obviously Solihull. You're obviously doing a number of things there. Yeah. Then you get a scholarship opportunity. Yeah. Now this is a big change because you're what age now? 18, 19?
It first came up when I was probably I think I was 18, but it took until I was 20 to get it all finalized because of the papers, the visas, and the trials I had to go to.
So where did you go?
I ended up in Kansas.
Kansas. This ain't Kansas no more.
Oh my goodness gracious! Yeah. What a difference in culture too, right? This culture shock must have been.
Well, this is one of the big things.
Mind-boggling.
You're a 20-year-old English lad. You know, you're kind of like trying to work out what to do. You're trying to kind of enjoy the game, experience the game. You're like, what's the next step for you? What are you thinking? Like, you're in America. You're 20. You're on this scholarship. Like, just talk to this a little bit. It must be kind of an incredible experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super curious about this.
I mean,
for sure.
The big thing with that was they would always push the education side of things. So, but for me, it was all about the football. I was doing.
Scholarship means that you're going there. You're going to school, and you get to play football, right? Like you kind of get both, right?
Yeah. Sorry. So he was just saying, like, you get to go to school and kind of like experience that.
Like, I mean, you've all seen the films, right? So, you know, these kind of American Pie style things. I had this, I thought I'm going to be an athlete. I'm going to be training 2-3 times a day. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to get the opportunity to get into the MLS. That's what the goal was for me. And it was a big shock when I got there. The standard, excuse me a second.
All good. Technical situations.
Got it. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
No worries, mate.
So the standard of this particular team, it was a guy called Joe McLaughlin. He'd sent me to this college. He was an ex-Chelsea defender. Millwall assistant manager in the championship. So you take his word on the facts.
Sounds like legit, right?
He sent me to his college saying it's academy level. I thought, okay, good. It was probably the worst team I've ever been involved in. And the management, who was an ex-professional himself from Brazil.
You've never played with Brian, mate, so that's
he wanted
neither
me
of
to
you, Luke. So don't start talking shit.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a bit of a you two. There's a bit of tension, isn't there? Definite tension. But yeah, he wanted me to coach the players how to take corner kicks. And I'm thinking these guys are similar age to me. How can they not
take corner kicks?
And I was like, I'm here to play, not to train people. And it was 45 degrees. It was just a bit of it was a massive disappointment for me, actually. And then they started asking, even though it was a scholarship, asking for money that I didn't have, that I wasn't supposed to be paying. We're talking like $10,000 for a semester.
What?
And they wanted, and then I was like, no, that's not right. And it just got messy. I was contacting Joe. He didn't want to help me. He just He had his cuts.
So I'm intrigued. Like, you're still a young lad at this age, and like, you clearly had talent, right? You clearly had the ability. Wolves don't come sniffing around youngsters just willy nilly.
No.
I have friends who kind of, like, when I grew up, were in these kind of like youth systems, and they were the standout players at school. They were the guys that everyone wanted to be. You know, it was Morgan Evans was at Aston Villa. Drew Canavan was at Wolves and Albion, I think, at Villa as well. So, like, you were obviously a good player even to get into Solihull. Like, Solihull were a fifth division. That is the fifth division of England. Is still a very good division.
You're still part of the. You're still part of the league, like the country's league, right? So it's not. Well, you're in a division, you know.
Exactly, and you're a young lad
playing Sunday league.
Well, this is the thing. We're all watching Jamie Vardy now, and all absolutely mesmerized by what he's doing. And you know, he was bumming around in the Conference League until he was 25, 26. So this is an incredible achievement at such a young age. So, you know, this is madness to me that like why? Where was that? Was there no support systems, no youth involvement?
So
like,
I actually have a thought on this because I actually lived in the U.S. I started playing football in the U.S. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, which is, you know, a few hours away from where you were in Kansas. And I started playing for a club called Concord, which was won the state championship, won the state championship in the level, a couple levels above me. It was a very good club in the US, but it didn't go further than that. And this has been a massive issue in North America generally for football, is that there's a really good like base level for youth football, for youth soccer in the US, but there was never a proper transition like you see in Europe, where they have, you know, like, which they've now actually they've implemented. We now have we have systems in place where you can, if you're 13 or 14 and you've played at a really high level, let's get them into Toronto FC or let's get them into Vancouver Whitecaps. They have academies now, which they didn't have for years. And so what you ended up doing was you ended up going into a scenario where you got a scholarship for a system that didn't really have a transition from playing really good football at a young age to playing at sort of the next level, what would be now considered university level or USL, and then of course MLS, which is sort of the peak of it. None of that transition existed then. I left when I was about 12, but I saw both my brothers, two older brothers, also played at a very high level for the same club, for Concord, in the US or in Atlanta. And all of our clubs did really well, very well coached, but then it just stopped. There was the coaching and the systems that are now in place that obviously weren't in place when you were there. Now they now exist. So that's exciting, but obviously I still want to hear more about that what happened to you, but it's good to see that has changed. I think that there's been implementation of academies and building from a youth system that didn't happen before.
I mean, at that university there I was talking about, it was quite a new program, I think, the soccer program. So it was still only I think it was in its third year. So they kept saying that as an excuse to me. It was like, oh, we're still building, you know, that's not really what I wasn't told that. And that didn't make me feel any better because I was only going to be there for a period of time. So we had some guys there. We had a couple of Brazilian players come in. They weren't bad. A guy who played for Kaiserslautern in Germany, and he was Croatian, Marco. He was just there for the party. Like, he didn't really seem to care.
This is what I'm wondering. You're a 20-year-old English lad with impressionable American young women around you. Like,
yeah, you know, you're in Kansas, mate. There's not a lot.
You're in Kansas now. Well, that's it.
This is it. Yeah.
It is not the Kansas you've seen on the telly.
So okay. So you're there, and then around this time, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, which play in I think it's the USL,
which
USL,
new league at the time, and quite a successful league still to this day. They come sniffing around and they're interested and they like you, but there's complications even from that level. Like, what happened with that?
So I'd only been training with the university for, I think, honestly, about 3 weeks. Now, the coach Roberto, he had a friend Roberto was Brazilian, and his friend, I think he was Brazilian as well. He came to watch training just because he was his friend. He just came down. And without wanting to gloat, I was clearly the standout player in this group. And he pulled me aside at the end, and I didn't know who he was, but he was actually like a recruiter for players from Tampa Bay. And he actually told me face to face, he gave me like an email address and things. And he said, look, come the new year, January time, you can come and train with us. And this is going to be, I didn't know anything about the US system. So he said, basically, I was in. From that training session alone, he was like, you're going to be into Tampa Bay. It's a new league. You could join us, and I thought, fantastic, because I hated where I was, but if I could stick it out for a few months, I don't know how it worked. But I didn't understand how it would be.
Yeah, but naive, right? Like young and
university.
naive, and not like it's quite different than what would have experienced in England for sure.
But then when they started asking for money, I was in a situation where I couldn't stay, and I couldn't get a resolution from the guy who sent me. So I was on Skype. I had no signal on it was just a terrible situation. I had no signal on my phone where we were staying. We were in the middle of nowhere.
Kansas.
There was an outdoor pool, which was cool. That was about it.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so
you were clicking your heels together like fucking, there's no place like home. There's no place like home.
I was pretty homesick at that time. I was struggling because of how bad it was, more so than wanting to go home.
And so I'm intrigued. So this is an awful lot for a youth player, right? So how long were you in total in America?
I was there for a couple of months. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
wow, that's that short. It sounds like there was a lot there, right? But
this was all in a few hours, mate. That story.
Yeah,
wow.
This is very quick. So okay, so you're in the US, right? You've done that. Then you come back to the UK.
Yeah.
You then start getting interest from some European clubs, a lot in Sweden, and this kind of starts really the last couple of years, or a good part of your career now has been spent in Sweden playing football. So sure. I'm intrigued. Like Boden's, BK were looking at you, and Boden's have had some pretty decent players that have come from there at the time. But you had a bad injury, and so and it was a knee injury. Yeah. So what age were you? Kind of what kind of knee injury? Like where did this put your
This is the kind of where, like I've told you some stories about the bad luck, timings, everything. Yeah. So when I came back from the States, I was in touch with Tampa Bay through like this email address. They were only able to sign if it kind of changed. There was a Dutch guy in touch with me, and he was very adamant that I'd needed to have finished university first. I wasn't sure how it worked. So it kind of, that petered out into nothing, to put it into a long story short. So I came back, I started to train with some clubs just in England, just semi-pro, just keeping myself involved. And I had actually had a girlfriend that was Swedish in my time, and that also ended terribly. But that's another story. So
that's on next week's part.
That's next week's
part 2.
Relationship advice. Yeah. So no, it gave me an idea because I was thinking, where can I play football? And that's the reason Sweden popped into my head, not because of her, just because she was from that country.
Okay.
So I just took it up on myself. I started contacting clubs in Sweden with email. I was spending hours a day sourcing emails from their websites. I had a football CV, which I'd put together. And eventually, like Boden's was one of the first teams that got in touch with me. And that had a bad luck story, because the first trial that they offered me, they paid for me to go out there and everything. And on the way there, I got very, very sick somehow, to the point where I was on like a bus to an airport, and I had to get off in the middle of nowhere because I was throwing up, and I had like a fever for about 3 weeks. I couldn't get in touch with them because it was the middle of the morning, and I only had an email address. So they were fuming, really angry at me, because they were waiting for me at the airport and I wasn't there. And they didn't see the email until, 7 hours later. So they almost told me to not come back. Once they'd seen what had happened, we rearranged. So I eventually go on the trial. There's a couple of American guys there. Actually, one, Ryan Gracia, he played in like DC United, I think, at least in the second side. He was a good player, and I stayed with him while I was on trial. Nice guy. And I got offered a contract after just 2 or 3 trainings. I did really well. I loved it. The setup was everything I'd wanted for all these years. The stadium, the facilities, the kits, everything was amazing. The training itself, the technical aspects, everyone was playing football. It was just, I was like realizing my potential very quickly because they were playing how I wanted to play. And they had this training game against the Norwegian side. I'd already been offered the contract, and the board came to greet me on the pitch and said, like, we just want you to play in this game so the fans can see you. No pressure. I was like, okay. I was only going to play one half. I was quite relaxed. And I made a tackle during the game. I went to get up, and my studs kind of slipped on the turf, and then it jarred my knee out. And as I went to stand back up, it just popped, like I just collapsed under my knee. And then that was it. And I thought, okay, so I came off.
Was that the ACL? Was it all the kind of like?
It's but it wasn't as bad as I thought.
Okay,
it was bad, but not complete rupture. And I had a meet. They were saying, "Oh, you'll be able to train tomorrow." I was like, "There's no way. I can't even start. This is impossible." And so I had a meeting with the board the next day, and they were still very interested, but they said, "Look, we can't offer you what we've said now because
you're not fit, right? Yeah, you're injured." So.
Yeah, and that was hard to take because I understand, but of course, for me, I'd actually been off. I wasn't playing the game to prove myself. It was just a showcase almost, and it was just, why has this happened?
Oh,
so that set me back. I think it was 8 to 10 months for me to get back from that, at least.
Brutal.
Getting home was really hard as well because I had bags. I couldn't walk, so it was just a nightmare. 3 flights from there back to England as well.
So this is kind of where I want. Yeah, exactly. And this is where I kind of want to jump in before we move on. Is that, we've seen right now there is far more of a focus on the mental health of everyone really in the world. Like there's mental health day, stuff like that. People more focused around like this kind of
comfortable talking about it essentially is becoming
it's starting to become better at it. But we are seeing that this is still a massive issue in football. We see only just 6-7 months ago, in the last 6-7 months, the young Man City player that was kind of released from the academy and went and killed himself. So this is incredible. Like this is before really mental health has been talked about. Like how are you dealing with this, and like what's your support system, and really were the clubs doing anything at all? Because it doesn't seem like they were.
No, I mean, sorry, mate. Yeah, Buden. No, that's what disappointed with that club. They were very much. They sent me to the physio the next day. I was due to have like a medical there on that day, actually, like proper testing. And sorry, this keeps falling out as well. It's shocking, mate.
It's all right, mate.
Not prepared. So I was due to have a medical where they do it with the Swedish, like the Olympic athletes and everything. That was all set. That obviously got cancelled. So, but there was no, once that had happened, they would barely. They didn't even want me. The physio from where I was staying with Ryan was probably 15 minutes walk, but I couldn't walk. But they wouldn't put a car on for nothing. So I had to kind of limp there. It's crazy, and I just accepted it because what else could I do? I didn't. I was a bit disappointed, and then they left me to the airport. And as I said, that was I mean, there's nothing they can do. I want some at the airport. I appreciate that, but there was no.
It didn't even sound like they cared very much. Like it was just sort of, on your bike.
And this is what people don't see with football. It's very cutthroat industry to the point where if you're not wanted, you're not.
Very
soon
harsh.
Find out. So that set me. And they promised us. They basically promised to sign me This would have been in July or June or July of the summer. So it was like halfway through their season. So they were second in the league at the time. And they said, "Look, we'll sign you for next season. As long as you're back, fine. We love what we've seen." The physio had told them what the injury was, so they knew I wasn't going to be a different player after the injury.
Yeah, you'd recover essentially.
So I kind of got my head together. That kept me going. That opportunity. I thought, okay, come January, February, even March, I'm going to be there, and that was a comfort to know that. So I focused on that, and I got myself back. My dad helped me a lot with my recovery. Just test because I was in a lot of pain even when I was first training. But my knee was still very I was scared.
It's not secure.
Knee's a difficult one.
I did a knee injury, and I was out for 3 or 4 years. I had like complications, and a lot of it after the final year was you just have no faith in the knee itself. So,
you can't play the way you normally play when you lose faith in a part of your body. Like I think I've told Luke about this, but my heel and / ankle on one side of my feet, my standing foot, just as soon as I go to kick the ball, most of the time just gives out, and I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm done for the day. And that's usually happens after I played 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and I'm tired. So you just can't play at the same level. So you must have struggled with that, right? Like getting back to the point of where you felt like you were confident again in your
very
body.
frustrating. I mean, I think I work a lot on like quick feet, dribbling, and my knee just didn't have that range of motion that I required.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't do those things. So
bloody hell,
I came back. Then that's when so I was prepared for this transfer, and then they changed the sports director of the club, and they had an emphasis on. Excuse me. Say that.
No worries. Have a quick moment.
No. Thank you for doing that, because most people are just like coughing in the microphone.
Yeah, we just call straight down it.
Yeah. And I'm like, my ears.
For me, what's incredible with this is that the incredible nature of just. leaving a youngster and just like a young player. And you think about some of the players the last couple of years, Bri, that have had such quality. My head straight away goes to the likes of Jack Wilshere. This guy seemingly spent his entire career injured, and yet was still lauded as this world-class player. And seemingly, I think the more that we really look at Jack Wilshere, the more that we realize that from a very young age, it was clear that his body probably was knackered. And yet he's still signing contracts with big clubs, with Man City and Arsenal and all these kind of guys. So
training with Arsenal right now, trying to find a club at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. It is amazing. It is amazing just to kind of see. But poor old Nathan's having a bit of a moment. He'll be back.
Get the lad some water. Get the lad some water.
Some water out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's go on, Luke. Go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's just you don't expect that, and I think it's so easy for us to think that we know what football is, and we do this podcast and we listen and we all talk about how much we know, and Brian Ireland knows everything about Tottenham and Luke knows about Villa but like realistically, what do we know? We don't know anything. We don't know about the strife and the struggles and we were very lucky in this pod to speak to some great people. Like Stephen Colwell came on and talked about the incredible sacrifices that he made, but he knew from a young age, and he seemingly had so much given to him and so many opportunities. And when I speak to Nathan, what really jumps out at me is that he's so confident in his own ability. And it just makes me think of those Jamie Vardys, the guys who were playing in non-league level that you and I would never ever have heard about, and knew.
We probably would have played in it because that's how good we were.
Exactly.
Get skinned by Jamie Vardy probably.
Exactly. And this kind of tenacious young player, but he had the want to continue to push himself, and at this late age jumps up into the Premier League, then goes on to win the Premier League with Leicester, now continues to be standout in his 30s.
Golden boots,
it's amazing.
A couple golden boots, yeah. Impressive as hell.
Exactly. And I think for me, I don't know about for you, but yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we're incredibly naive about what it means, and this is why I'm loving this conversation and chatting with Nathan about it, because it is such a different world. We spend most of our time judging players and players shit, made a mistake here, crap, not good enough for my team, all these things in and out of my club, all the things that we say. But for what they've gone through to even get remotely close to that conversation is sort of that's what this conversation is about. It's incredibly difficult to you could be, arguably Nathan's as good as probably a third of the players in the Premier League. He just hasn't had the opportunity in his path to where he ended up playing in Sweden. That's where his path took him. But the path is the thing. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. Sometimes your situation happens later on in life, what we've seen with Antonio, we were talking about as well, and of course Jamie Vardy. So we spend our time slagging everybody who's doing it when they're not doing it really well, and it's like we should probably give them a little bit of leeway, on our judgment, because it's such a difficult thing to do, to play professional sports.
And that's why, and that's why I wanted to do this, and I wanted to bring Nathan on and talk to him, and I'm gonna get into it when he's okay recovered, he's back with us. Yeah, I was like, I hope he's had a COVID test recently. I'm pretty sure he has. So I think he's gonna be okay there. But it will be interesting. He's had quite the career in Sweden. He's jumped around a number of teams. He's got some unbelievable stories, but the thing that stood out to me in the weeks of getting to know him and kind of hanging out with him was that we got to experience and I got to feel his passion. And Nathan's similar age to me now. He's 31, 32. He's battling for a contract, and listening to him speak, he backs himself. He's like, I can still play at this level. I can play at a high level still, but it just feels like the opportunities aren't given. And you and I watch things like the MLS, and we say, oh, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, we're welcoming back.
Welcome back.
It's good. We're running out
he's alive, things to people. He's alive.
That's okay. Well, we're seeing
it's all good, man. We had a good chat while you were going.
We're seeing the CPL now, Bri. There's a brand new startup league in Canada.
Yeah.
That trying to grow. We're talking about how badly they've marketed it, how badly they've put this together. But the league is decent. They've got some money behind them. The players are probably making decent coin, nothing amazing, but enough to keep them interested. So I want to get back to that. But now that we've got Nathan back, Nathan, I want to skip to kind of recover from the knee injury. You're back into Sweden. You jump around. You know, you're Miriso. Miracle. I'm not even going to try that.
Yeah, don't butcher it. You're not Paul. You're not Paul here.
I'm going to butcher. I'm going to the Troll Hattons. No, I'll let him talk. But 3, 4, 5 teams. Rosengard, where Zlatan obviously started his career.
Cool.
You've had
Nice.
quite the
History.
career in Sweden. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about is it the Swedish the Swedish Juventus or the we have to. That's a great story I want to come to. But let's talk about the last couple of years in Sweden, how that's kind of panned out.
Let's hope I can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Take your time with your don't...
Sorry, yeah.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah, so just to fill in where I was left off, so with the Budens BK, they offered to sign me, as I said, and then by the time the winter came around, they'd changed the whole system. So the sports director had gone. The manager had changed, and they were focusing like a big emphasis on just signing local young players, cheap. So they didn't know who I was. That was it. That was over. So that whole thing I'd worked back for, gone, just like that. So
It's unbelievable.
So I was back.
It's amazing how just quickly, right? Like it's like a snap of fingers. Like what we're watching with Newcastle to an extent with Steve Bruce. He's new owners come in, sacked.
That's this
totally different club. I know it's just sort of that's football, right? Like it just can change on a dime that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and people don't really see that from the outside, especially at the low level. Obviously, Steve Bruce, but he's been on, he's earned millions, hasn't he? So
yeah,
he'll survive.
A little bit of clout on his name, like as much as it's fun to knock him as a Villa fan, as he's been around the Blues and stuff. He comes in and he does what he can do. Like
he's kept him up.
Newcastle are they're so fucking finicky. They're so. They've got no idea, and this is why people get annoyed with Newcastle fans, is sometimes they live in this fake reality of they're not the Newcastle that they were, when Shearer was there. They're not there with Colwell or Gary Speed or Kevin Keegan, things moved on and he's had no money. He's and people berate the football. And so Steve Bruce has never played unbelievable football, but also to play that football, you need money, especially English managers. Bielsa's different. He's brought a whole new mindset. But you don't find your Bielsas in every corner. So
that's a bit lucky for Leeds. I think that situation.
Very, very lucky, mate.
Timing was very good
for sure.
Yeah.
So you wanted
so let's kind of talk about Sweden. So you've had a number of years there now. You've jumped around, kind of like why Sweden? What's kept you there? Obviously, when you're playing in the Swedish realm, I'm sure the other scouts are Swedish, are looking at you from Sweden, and that's probably why. But let's talk a little bit about that.
I think just from my first experience, as I said before, with Buden, I loved the trait. I just loved how they played, and I improved a lot there. A lot more composure. Fitness was taken. Everything was.
Coaching was better. Coaching was better.
The actual structure. We, to receive
the women over Kansas women.
Just about only just
a bit.
Yeah. No. The training. We used to receive like a training schedule like a month in advance, and I just wasn't used to these kind of things. Even at academy level, it was never that. It was nowhere near. They were years ahead with everything, and even the facility. The wages aren't as high as you would get in the UK, but you would get, as many football boots as you wanted.
You're getting treated properly, like as a professional.
Yeah, absolutely, and they get the media involved. You do interviews, especially because I was at the time, there'd been hardly any English players over there. So it was kind of a niche, and I took myself over there. So I was quite proud of that fact. There was no agents involved, nothing like that. So I'd done it myself. I started off at Wilshere, as you want to say it.
Marescha.
Yeah, not bad.
No, that's terrible.
And the coach there was a massive support to me. He saw my qualities, and this was what I really appreciate. He saw my qualities instantly. He was like, right, I want you to be a number 10. I want you to play here. You're going to take penalties. He put a lot of responsibility on me, but I like that. I responded to that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I scored in my first 2 games, the winning goal in each game. I got the man of the match awards, and things were just looking up for me then. And then we missed out on promotion. They couldn't afford to sign me again for the following season, so I was back to square one.
Goodness.
So it's like, okay. And then there's no, that's where an agent would come in handy, you see, in that scenario, because I've got this. I was on my own, so I was like, okay, what do? I had to start again. So it's kind of become it's like a loop. It's a dangerous cycle of situation that is.
So
and
you
it
went to
normally
another
comes down
club
to
in
money.
Sweden at that point? You just were like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, a top flight
Well,
club, or
the
were
sad
you
thing with
second?
that was
Yeah,
second
second
division.
Okay.
This was, and the sad thing was with this one, they had said they were interested in me still, so they kept me hanging for 6 months during the off season because their pre-season is very long.
Right.
But because I was an international player, they wanted to, because they have to pay me. They'd pay me more basically. They wanted me to sign. They wanted to give me say 6 weeks pre-season instead of 4 months to pay me less. Which I agreed to. Yeah, I know. So I agreed to that, and then at the last minute, like, yeah, we can't do it. Sorry. So I had such a small window to find another club because of that happening. So I think Luke's got there. I'd been at John Trials with some clubs like Rosengård, Trial Hatton, and it all comes down to money. There was no ability issue. The money they offer or they don't offer is just sometimes it's a joke, and
Yeah.
And that's again where an agent.
What does that look like, if you don't mind? We talk about wages when we're looking at the Premier League, and obviously that's the highest level, right? They're 250 grand a week, 300 grand a week if you're at a really high level. What are you talking about in the Swedish league per week if you're going to sort of measure it in the same way?
I mean,
what would that number look like?
It varies. So I would say the top earning player in the Allsvenskan, which is the Premier League, this Malmo, who had the biggest budget, they broke into the Champions.
Yeah, I think Spurs might have played Malmo at one point in the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he did, or the Europa, one of them. Yeah.
I think it might have been in the qualifiers in the Champions League or something like that. But I'm pretty sure Spurs played them. Yeah, I do know.
They got into the group stage. They faced like Real Madrid. They got a bit of a beating actually, but that was when Real Madrid were good. I think it was like 7-0. But still.
Yeah.
But they got a lot of money. Financially, they gained a real foothold, and so they're like the dominant force in Sweden financially now. But they still didn't win the league. I think they slipped to second or third. But their top players maybe earns on a weekly basis maybe £15,000 if you put it in English money. So it's still not
good. Still good coin though.
But the average Swedish player in Allsvenskan is probably more.
Is it closer to like MLS levels? Would you say, or even a little bit more?
It's about £8,000 a month.
Yeah, so around MLS levels, I would say that's. Yeah, I think the average MLS player makes around 75-80 grand a year or something like that. It's not.
Yeah, so it's very similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just enjoy. I mean, it was the lifestyle, everything there for me was great. I loved it. And
Sweden's a nice country, and talk about women. I mean,
where do I start? Yeah.
Well, we'll come back to that.
I think right there, probably.
Yeah.
Beautiful people in Sweden.
Beautiful people, great culture, and
shift that mic over, fellas.
Shift it. Yeah. So obviously now I want to speak a little bit about some funny experiences you've had.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, like there's there's a famous saying in comedy: tragedy plus times equal comedy. I don't think you had enough time in these experiences to find the comedy in it. Like I think you were lacking on that. There's a lot of tragedy and not enough time. But you did run into this very interesting conversation we had with was it something Juventus, something Milan, the Swedish team.
Juventus, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were named after the Italian Juventus. Same kit, black and white stripes, famous kit, ran by a guy called.
I've heard about this.
Franco.
Yeah, so this is it's quite an old club, but they went through a bit of a rebrand. They had some foreign money, and I think there was an awful lot of conversation about where this money was coming from, and I think by the sounds of things, it wasn't straight. So, what age are you at this stage? You are?
I think 24.
Okay, so you're still quite young, a number of years ago. So let's just talk me through. Talk me through where you're at club wise. You get this conversation, you get this invitation to come and have a conversation about this club. Yeah. This story is fantastic, and I think it really wraps up just the ridiculous complexities and the madness that is an unsigned or an unrepresented player who's trying to get themselves further up the poll. So just take us through this wonder.
Sure. So at the time I'll start from the beginning with this one. So I was back at home. I got a contact from this club. It was an English guy contacting me called Chris, who I had no idea who this was. And he was like a spokesman for, said Franco, who I will get onto. And he was like, oh, Franco's seen your CV, really interested to get you. He sold me the dream. It sounded fantastic. Like, this is a stepping stone. You play here for a few months, you're going to be playing for,
the Malmo.
Yeah, the Malmo or the club. He's got contacts. he named a few players that he'd helped make that move, and I looked them up, and it was genuine. So I was like, okay. He's like, you get paid. You're not going to get loads, but you're going to earn. You're going to have a place to live in a town. This was in a place called Vesteros. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come out. So they got me out there. Well, no, I'll go back a few steps, actually. They were going to fly me out there. They didn't in the end. So I had to make my own way. And I had another opportunity prior to this on the way. So I
started well right there, didn't it?
Starts well. Always starts well.
Yeah.
So I had another opportunity, which was further south in Sweden. So I thought, I'm going to go there first. My old coach from Milkwa had offered to let me stay with him while I'd do that. So I was staying there, and I was training with his club. It was going well. As I was there, I got a phone call on a Friday. I remember it being a Friday from Franco, saying and he spoke like true soprano character. And he was very much like, oh, there's a hotel opening. My friend's opening a hotel in this city. Do you want to come and check it out with me? Sorted you a hotel room there. We can chat about the transfer. I told the coach I was staying with, and he was like, you got to go. It's a good opportunity. So on I went on this train. As I got there, I very quickly realized this wasn't what I was expecting. So there was a massive queue outside this hotel. It was like a bar at the bottom of the hotel. It was called the English Pub. And I think that's why he brought me along. Like I was going to be, oh, wow, English.
You got an English lad here.
I wasn't that impressed with it, to be fair. But either way, and then there was a massive queue to get in. And I was there with my 2 suitcases. And he was like, hey, come on, just come in. Hey. So I walked through this crowd with my suitcases. And then he, after promising me a room, it turned out we were sharing a room. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. And this guy did look like something out. Honestly, like I said, Soprano. If you think Tony Soprano,
gangster. I was gonna say it's gangster, right? Sounds like it.
He was from the Balkans. I think he was from Serbia.
Dodgy business.
But he had this accent, yeah. And he was I remember him being very sweaty and panicky. He was all a bit shifty looking. And I thought, okay, anyway, I'm here now. What am I going to do? So he was getting drunk, this guy. I didn't really want to drink because I thought he's like the coach. He was like everything. He just did all the jobs at the club, it seemed. And he was saying we were training the next day. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to get involved with this. But at the same time, I didn't want to appear rude. So I had one beer in the end. And then during the evening, he was like, oh, I have to go down. I'm not going to do the accent anymore. So he was like, I'm going to go downstairs and do some, we got some business you can come downstairs. I was like, okay. So he took me to a basement in this hotel. And it is a basement. I have no idea.
This is not going well right now, Dave.
Not at all.
This sounds super fucking
warning
dodgy.
signs are
there's lights flashing.
Red flags.
Everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. And so I get down there, and there's literally men in suits.
What's wrong with your ears?
I think they're just small little.
It's fine, guys.
Cute little ears. I've got cute little ears.
We can still hear you. That's the mic. Keep talking.
So I go downstairs. There's all these big burly men in suits. Literally like a scene. I can't keep saying it, Sopranos. They're all from Balkan, and they're all eating meat off the bone, like big chunks of pork, just straight out the hand. And I'm like, why? And I'm sitting here, slight build in my denim shirt. Look, and I'm like, and they're like, what's he doing here? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then they're like, I have to sit in the corner. I was just sitting in the corner, and they were like, you can have something to eat if you want, but that's it. And then he was like, just sit over there. We're doing business. I was like, I didn't ask to be here, So I was sitting in the corner, traumatized, waiting for the death, really. I thought it's going to happen at some point. What a way to go. I survived that evening, though. And we went back to the hotel, not in that way. And he was snoring all evening. And I was lying there. I couldn't sleep. And I thought, what is going on?
Where am I now?
Yeah, and then we trained the next day. I'm on the train with him, and it's I don't know what to say to the guy. And we go to training, and he starts telling all the players, he's like, "This guy was so drunk last night. You should have seen the state of him." They've never met me, and I wasn't. I hadn't, like I said, I had one beer.
You had one beer, yeah.
Hours. He had. Let's put a couple of zeros on the end of that. That amount of beers, and he's just telling all these new guys that I was really drunk at a party, and I'm thinking, what's he doing? So that was welcome to Sweden.
That is bizarre. Okay, so I have a question for you based on all of that. Why the fuck did you not have an agent? What was why did you go through all of this? From what happened in the US, all the
Sure.
way to this point in Sweden, you're still doing this on your own. Like,
Sure.
what the fuck, dude? Like, get an agent. No?
It's a question. I was trying to find one, to find one you can trust, and to find one
It's
that's
hard.
got
Yeah,
your,
I imagine.
I was like scrolling FIFA websites. I found a few Swedish guys.
Didn't you have any mates though who were also professionals who had an agent? You could be like, hey, are you available? Because I need somebody. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
You would think so, but I didn't. None of my friends, anyone that played football with me from a junior age, kind of drifted out the game. Or
really, yeah. Okay, so you stayed in it, and you didn't have anybody there with you, kind of doing it.
No, and they don't really want to help, even if there was people. That it's very. I look after yourself.
Well, a lot of players drift out the game, don't they? I think we forget this is that, for every 1,000 young players, there's only 1 or 2 that's around. So
yeah, they end up playing Sunday League like you and I, Luke. That's what it comes down to. We're just like, oh, I love the game still, but I'm not professional. I'm going to do other things in my life. But you still end up playing, right?
Yeah, I genuinely was. I think there was a few lads playing in England, but not at that level. So it wasn't. Their agents wouldn't have anything for me in Sweden anyway. It's a very niche.
And you're young, right? So you're not necessarily. You're naive. You're not necessarily like on point and like aware of things and like I should do this and this is going to be good for me. And you're like flying by the seat of your pants essentially the entire time trying to figure out what the fuck to do. So
exactly. On that particular trip before that happened, I was in Sweden for 3 or 4 weeks traveling around with barely any cash. I just took myself out there. Thought I'm gonna wing it at this point because I backed myself, and I'm not going to say, I'm ashamed to say, but I was using Tinder to find places to stay. I was doing whatever it needed to be done at that time because I didn't know where I was going to be next, honestly. And yeah, it was not only a couple of times, but
but that's a good start.
Yeah, this is great, mate.
Find a lady. Hey, what are you doing tonight? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I've had women do this to me, so it's nice to hear that it works the other way.
It goes the other way. That's
exactly.
Oh my God.
But like,
unbelievable,
so
mate.
you've been
That's
through these
crazy.
ridiculous experiences. Now you've had a number of better experiences in Sweden. You've built a number of years there. A couple of teams from other places of Europe are looking around. Ireland sneaking around, Ballymena in Northern Ireland, which have had a number of good players come through there. St. Ledger that played for Ireland. I think he made about 36 appearances. He was obviously represented and was playing for Ballymena as well. So not a number of good players. You ended up staying in Sweden. Now, we kind of get to more along kind of the modern day and current right now. And obviously, as Brian and I and many of the rest of the world have seen, COVID has caused a hell of an issue for a number of players. And sorry, people across the world. But, for you and your world, I suppose people don't think about it because we've seen, Brian, the behind the closed door games that the Premier League survived on, the players are, but like when you listen to the lower leagues, they really, really have struggled and a number of teams have folded because of this. So as a professional, I know you got hit by this. So let's talk a bit about that. Like, how did COVID affect you?
Yeah. So I think we're in February 2020. I had a team in Finland that was keen to sign me called, I think it was Kemi. They're one of the most famous clubs there.
Yeah. And it was a good contract, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was a good contract. I had a trial match against Accrington Stanley at their training grounds in England. They said they had representatives based in England at this Finnish club. So they came to, that was easier for them. But they also offered to fly me to Finland. But I thought, I'll just play this game,
Absolutely.
That didn't get cancelled straight away. It got delayed because no one expected this to run as it ran. So it got pushed back. They didn't give me a set date, but like, we'll just, look again in 4 weeks. Well, then it was just another 4 weeks before, it was cancelled. And I got to June of that year and I got a trial in Sweden again. And I did really well. I scored a couple of goals in training games. I'd only been training by myself. I had no other option. So I hadn't been even able to train with any teams or anything of the sort. But I felt good. And they offered me a contract. It was like 75% below what I would normally get. And that's not high either, my normal wage particularly. So I couldn't take it. And I had to say no on the basis of it's just...
It wasn't... You couldn't sustain
You've got to have... No, I couldn't sustain myself. And you've got...
it's not functional.
You've got to have a cut-off point in those... No, you've got to have a cut-off point in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I did think that, I'd be able to reassess come the new year again. And obviously now, we've had the Brexit situation. So it's made it even harder to sign for a team. I've had a few options come up. I've spoke to Luke about a random opportunity in Iceland appeared and contract was ready to go. That was through an agent who I'm not assigned to, but he would work on my behalf.
Right.
That fell through because of Brexit, because they needed to get a work permit, and it's not difficult for them, but it's just that extra bit of paperwork.
Costs more money. It's more time involved. Yeah, there's a rigmarole.
And that's what I've started to learn about football. Is it's people think it's results driven, but it is to an extent. So even if I was 10 times the player they signed from Spain in the end, they're still going to sign him because it's easy, and it's a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you got to question how much the results-driven side of it is,
especially for the lower leagues. Yeah.
And that's happened to me a lot. It's normally come down to wages, some sort. Or if they can find a Swedish player who's, again, it could be half the player, but it's half the cost.
It's easier.
So
like you said, right?
And that's been a big problem for me. And yeah, as Luke's mentioned, I'm staying fit, training again.
So I was going to say, where are you at now? You're still playing, right? Like or at least you're still trying to play.
I'm still active. Yeah, absolutely. I'm training tomorrow morning. Actually, I've got a couple of sessions this week. I'm always, I'm feeling
on top
good
of
in
it.
myself. Yeah. So I'm going to reassess in the new year. It's not too far away. And see what I can find. But I mean, I've had some other big transfers fall through on similar terms, and it's hard to keep going. I've had periods where mentally, as you mentioned before, like mental situation. I didn't want to get out of bed for 3-4 months because that's your life.
Just weighs down on you when you're not getting the thing that you need, right?
Waiting. 6 months waiting for a promised deal that then gets cancelled for no reason other than, we can't afford that extra little bit, And there's a few stories I've skipped out, but there's similar kind of situations where you've done well, you scored, you can't do any more. Oh, we can't afford you now. Sorry. And you think, why did you bring me here?
Yeah. What's the point?
Why have you instigated the trial? Why?
So this is a question I want to ask, and Brian, I'll let you jump in on this as well. So, I think right now we are seeing a golden age of football. What I mean by that is we're seeing players older than ever before are hitting their peaks at a far older. I could say it's fair to say Jamie Vardy is
fitness is different now. I think, right? Like
fitness is different.
Technology is better, and
exactly. And people are keeping themselves 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, nobody would have ever talked about yoga. Now every professional player from the 4th, 5th, semi-professional level are doing once, twice a week sessions because they know that flexibility is helped with the, the elasticity and with the elongation of one's
better
career.
For your muscles.
Look at Zlatan. Yeah, of course. Exactly. So, it's a raw question, but it has to be asked. You're at that other side of 30 now, Nathan, and it is. You've already run into a lot of hardships, right? It's difficult to find these contracts. But do you think this is an unreasonable mentality that these agents and clubs have, that they feel that they're still holding on to this idea that once past this number, the player is no longer, valid almost?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to you about it personally, and I said a lot of them now are looking. It's still the same. Yeah, 21. We need players at this age. They want to develop them and sell them for money. So. And there's a big push for that in Sweden in particular. They changed the rules, so you had to have a certain number of players, like homegrown players, which isn't a bad thing, but they're sacrificing a lot on quality because a lot of the youngsters in Sweden, for example, they're not even that interested, they're not focused, they don't care. They can earn money.
Different mentality, right?
They can make the same or more doing something else.
Yeah,
and they question, why am I going to push myself to do this in Sweden when I could go and work in a bank? I can work anywhere really in Sweden. There's a certain minimum wage that they're not going to struggle with.
The success of that country.
So that desire from a young age isn't really there. Now, I mean, me personally, I think I've said to you, if I haven't got a contract, the longer I have no contracts at this age, the harder it gets. If I had some stats from last season, so I scored 20 goals. Yeah, I'm 30, I'm 33,
it gives you a push of some kind, right?
And that last year has really dented that. So it's hard right now, but
back against the wall. So
as I said, I've got a residency permit now to move there, so I believe in myself to get out there and just find my way. But it's not going to be easy.
So difficult question for you, and answer it as you will. But post football, like have you thought about what you want to do post football, like a commentator, or I know what Luke does as far as presenting. Is you guys? I think Luke mentioned that's something that you're also doing. Are you recognizing that despite you still believing in yourself as a footballer and that you're going to be successful to some extent, there is an end at some point, right? Any athlete at the highest level is going to end at some point, some later than others, depending on who they are. But like, where are you at with that? What's your sort of
for sure. I mean, the last year, like I took yeah, I mean, I took a complete different turn last year when I was without a club, when it was the COVID situation, lockdowns, and everything like that. I trained as a barber, which is nothing I was really interested in. But I've done that. So I've got that behind me if I need to use that. Yeah, and I'm really interested in keeping in football. You have to excuse me a second again.
Yeah, go for it.
Get emotional. Get emotional, mate. Get emotional.
Yeah.
You set him over the edge, Bri.
I know. Sorry. I mean, it's a difficult question, right? Because it is something you have to consider. And and Luke, we both know in what we do and as freelancers and everything else, it is a challenge to adjust what you do to current circumstances, right? Like, I have to do different things now with my career than I did.
Well, you've started
2 years
stripping,
ago.
and
I did. I am now. No, I'm not stripping. I'm a man whore now. I've got my own system set up, and it's great.
You've got the dung for it, though, Bri. Like dongs out, dongs out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Brian Island mentality. Well, and Nathan, getting to know Nathan has been, it's been great. It's been really enjoyable. Like I myself, although very different to Nathan, have had a very untraditional kind of background in what I've done. I've done jobs that have, I've been event promotions, I've been live events, I've been consultancy, I've been a presenter. People have asked me for years, what do you do? And I'm like, well, fuck, I don't know. Like
a bunch of shit.
Yeah, probably the same with you. It's difficult for an individual to put themselves down. But I think this is the thing that we need to take away from this, is that these young players, that there has to be more of there has to be a better environment to succeed. He's
a better system too. Like, so if you don't necessarily get there, there's another way to shift. Maybe you shift into coaching, maybe you shift into punditry, maybe like, what are you good at other than football? Nathan's a good looking fella, so maybe he is the type of guy who does punditry, gets on, talks about football. You know what I mean? Like there should be a system in place that allows people to flourish if they're really good. And if they aren't necessarily going to, like, not necessarily that they aren't good, but they aren't necessarily getting the chances they might need to succeed, they still have a system in place that's part of the culture of football that allows them to succeed in other parts of the game. Like that. I think that's missing. Go on, Nathan. Good to have you back.
Yeah, I mean, I've dabbed into a bit of modeling, done some modeling. I've done some commercials revolving around football for a couple of sports supplements and some gambling companies. But there's only a pathway for the elite players into that industry, I feel. So,
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
so
that's a
they're
hard
not even.
thing
Some of them
it.
are terrible as well. I've watched that.
Oh, some of them are awful. Mate.
You've got people like Gabriel Agbonlahor talking on TV.
Awful, absolutely terrible.
It's painful. It's absolute. I'll say one thing to that, right? I'm a Villa fan. I'm a big fan of Gabby, just because of who he was, right? And it's the songs
doesn't make
about
him
it
a presenter, though. It doesn't make him a presenter. I've spent my whole life crafting my ability as a presenter, right? Yeah, you and I are far better than him, and you're actually professional, and I'm not. So
it's wild, right? It's wild. I'll give you one story, right? Gabby Agbonlahor had just played for England, and I was in a casino in Birmingham, and I'm on the roulette table, and I would have been, mid-20s, young lad, and I was like kind of in awe of who he was. And I look to my left, and the guy next to me moves, and then next to me is this young lad, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Gabriel Agbonlahor. And so me being I don't want to be that guy, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make one passing comment. So the fact that someone was allowing him to control his own money straight away was frightening. Frightening. The casino obviously made a lot of money that evening, but I turned to him, and as long as I live, I'll never forget this. I turned to him and I looked him straight in the face. I said, Gabby, I said, I'm a Villa fan. I just want to say it's lovely to meet you, and congratulations on the weekend, because that weekend Gabby had just won his first cap for England. I think he might have even scored a goal, or he'd had a good game. And he went, oh yeah. Oh, I swear to God, we played 2 rounds, and he turns back to me, looks me straight in the face, and goes, what happened on the weekend? I said, Gabby, you played for England? And he goes, oh yeah. The fact that I had to say this to a professional footballer who just made it England.
It annoys me.
Oh, it drives me fucking mad. And for you, it annoys you from the footballing sense. It annoys me. Listen, you want to go even further than that. Dion Dublin, wonderful individual, great person, not a bad pundit on Match of the Day, not terrible. You wouldn't know this, Brian. A couple of years ago, about 6-7 years ago, before I moved to Canada, I was presenting. I was trying to get opportunities. There's a famous TV show called Homes Under the Hammer here in the UK. It's where they go around and they're present. Hello, welcome to Homes Under the Hammer. Today we're looking at this beautiful 3-bed detached.
Yeah.
Nonsense, right? they announced there's a new presenter. It's, wow, okay, interesting. The next fucking week, it's Dion Dublin, a guy that had played him, and he's there, and they'd always have this.
It's just the face. It's just the face.
Oh, it's just the face, and they had this wonderful shot where they'd pan in on the presenters, and there was at the time there was 3 of them, and they'd always be on this path, and they're always walking towards the camera, and they'd pan in. Now there was 4 of them. Straight away, logistically, there wasn't enough space on the path to walk in together. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and I remember just getting so fucking angry. And listen, Dion, if for whatever random reason you hear this, I'm a huge Dion Dublin fan, but stop taking presenting jobs about homes from presenters.
Why would he though? He's getting paid for it. He doesn't give a shit.
I know, it makes me so angry. But anyways,
yeah, that's very true. Every time I see that show, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen him on it. I'm like, what's Dion Dublin doing?
Why is he on
He's playing football.
What's he doing?
He owns 3 properties. There you go. That makes it. Oh.
Lads, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. Was there anything you wanted to finish up with? So
I just want to wrap up and just talk about that. It is a hard kind of like career path now at this stage. Let's just very quickly end on this. Like, you are Nathan, you are that footballer, you're that player. There's only so much I can say. You know your own ability. Like, truthfully speaking, right now, what level do you think if you got given the opportunity on quality, not on age or anything like that, where do you think you realistically could play? Could you do a job in the MLS? Do you feel that you could do a job in the Championship? Like, and this is honest,
I mean, people may laugh, people may not, I don't know. But I've always said, and anyone that's come close to me and seen me play will say the same. And I still believe, I could play in the Championship in England for sure. On an ability level, if I was given the chance to get up to speed, the same opportunities they're given, I don't see why not. And any of the leagues in England below the Premier, I mean, the Premier League back in the day was an ambition for me. Now, of course, it's never going to happen. But MLS, absolutely. Or any of the Swedish divisions, absolutely, 100%. Now, no problem. Tomorrow. So it's not about skill. It's not about work rate. It's not about mentality. It's just
opportunity, isn't it? Yeah, it's opportunity.
So what would you say? So last point to young players out there, Stephen Colwell's got 2 young lads who are, they're lucky to have a father who was a professional Scotland international, but like other kids won't have that. They won't even have the footballing background like, you and I probably didn't have. So what would you say if it was a young lad listening to this podcast, or someone's dad was listening to this podcast, or an uncle whose nephew was playing? What's your advice? What are you saying? Listen, help them. How do you help them progress? Like what can they do, or what can family or friends do to kind of support that development and that journey?
I mean, make sure you know what you're getting into. First thing first, if you've got to know you want to do it. I mean, if I'd have seen what I've seen happen to me, if I'd have seen that coming, maybe I'd have reconsidered. There's a lot going on there for a very little comeback for me personally. Great experiences, good, bad. They're all shaped who I am now. But I think just make sure it's what you want. And if you do want that, then in terms of you need that family support. I had that from my parents. They didn't have the contacts in the game, as Luke just touched on with Caldwell. Mm-hmm. But my dad would have done anything to help me, and my mom as well. They're both great. I couldn't fault their commitment to helping me, but they just didn't know what to do. So you need to get someone that's got an in. It could be an agent. It could be just someone you need a contact in the game. Then.
Family, friend, whatever. Often the case, I would imagine, and I'm sure you would agree, but both of you would agree, it's just luck to some extent. Like you happen to know somebody, you happen to get in the right situation that gets you there.
I know a player, absolutely useless, scored a bicycle kick out of nowhere in one game, got signed by Derby County, and he was Sunday League level. He scored a goal at the right time with the right player in the stand.
Yeah, exactly. Lucky.
Big, so therefore, he could do a job for a centre-back. He got signed by Derby. He was there for about 18 months. Then he filtered back down the leagues, but he still had that. He earned that money.
Yeah, he got paid.
Still had that bit of pseudo name to him.
And even if he was terrible at Derby, he never really played. But if the next move would just be the league below, because they're like, oh, he's at Derby.
Because that's where you go next. Yeah, exactly. So it's feasible.
And that's to get that foot in the door is huge. I mean, you see it with managers in the top leagues. They can fail and fail and fail, and they'll get another job.
Yeah, Steve Bruce.
Just another conversation. But that's all I could say really. To have someone that's knowledgeable, that's on your side, that's got your interest, hard to find. And that's what I mentioned about agents. I did have an agent at one stage. He helped me at the beginning, and then he turned on me at the end because I didn't want to say yes to one thing he asked me to do, which wasn't going to help my career. And that was it. We went separate ways.
Wow. Cutthroat, right?
That basically trick Gabby on Bonnemore out of some money, I think, is the best advice I give anyone out there. Let alone
that's how it's going to work.
I wish I was there in the casino.
Oh God,
I wish I was.
Well, Nathan, I want to thank you, mate. This has been an absolute pleasure to have you on here to get like a really good inside look at what it's like to be a footballer in England and Europe and the world. I mean, you've gone kind of across the board when it comes to coming to North America as well.
Sure.
Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much. And obviously
Pleasure.
we'll have you back on, and maybe make you a regular if you're looking for something to do in the next.
Right, I've got many more stories, mate. Many.
Yeah.
This is a sample, a sprinkling.
Yeah. We'll definitely have you back on because it's been fantastic. It's been a pleasure. Luke, did you want to sign off?
No, that's everything. Nathan, I love you. Well done, congratulations, and thank you so much for joining us. I know for anyone watching, it is always an interesting story. That beautiful dream of being a footballer, but as we can tell, it's not always a beautiful dream. It can be a bit of a pseudo nightmare. So I wish you the best with the next couple of months coming up, and I'm rooting for you. That we're rooting for you, and fuck it, if Jamie Vardy can still do it, then why can't Nathan Hans? So
100%.
Brian, I'll throw it over to you. We're good.
Let's get Nathan Hans in at Toronto FC, mate. We could use a creator.
I'll tell you what, mate, they'd take anyone right now.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again, Nathan, and for everybody who's listening or watching, thank you for doing both. It's been an absolute pleasure. And Nathan, did you want to sign off? You look like you want to say something before we go.
No, I just want to say once again, Brian, thank you very much. It's great to share some of the stories I've got. And Luke, thank you as well for bringing me along. Yeah. And I hope to speak to you both soon. Again, I'd love to come on again.
Yeah, we'll have you, mate. But we'll have you back. Whenever Luke is not available, we'll get you on.
That's great. Yeah.
Or maybe you'll show up on time.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll show up on time instead
of. At least I fucking showed up, Connie.
All right, cheers, guys. Thanks everybody for watching. Like and subscribe. Get in the comments. Have your word. Have any questions for Nathan? Chuck them in there, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a good one.
Bye.
This is the North End. This is the North End.